Welcome to K-Drama Echoes, the channel where unforgettable on-screen moments become lasting stories, where chemistry outlives scripts, and where unanswered questions continue to echo long after the final scene fades to black. As the world steps into a new year, the entertainment industry does what it always does at moments like this. It looks forward while quietly revisiting the past. Old names resurface. Familiar faces trend again. And certain stories, no matter how much time passes, refuse to stay buried. Among all the conversations reigniting as 2026 begins, one question continues to dominate fan spaces, timelines, and late-night discussions across the Thai GL fandom. Will Faye Peraya and Yoko Apasra ever work together again? It is not just a question of collaboration. It is a question of memory, impact, and emotional residue. Because for many fans, Faye and Yoko were not simply co-stars in a successful series. They were the center of a cultural moment that arrived quietly and stayed far longer than anyone expected. When the series aired, it did not rely on shock value or exaggerated storytelling. Instead, it leaned into subtlety, into restraint, into a kind of emotional tension that trusted the audience to feel rather than be told. And at the heart of that experience were two performances that seemed to understand each other instinctively. From the very first episodes, viewers noticed something unusual. The way silence was used. The way eye contact lingered. The way conversations felt unfinished even when scenes ended. Faye and Yoko did not rush emotional beats. They allowed space for discomfort, longing, and hesitation. This approach made their pairing feel real, lived in, and dangerously believable. It was the kind of chemistry that does not shout for attention but slowly takes hold of the viewer, refusing to let go. As the series gained traction, the response grew beyond expectations. Clips went viral. Quotes were shared endlessly. Fans across different countries found themselves emotionally attached not only to the characters, but to the dynamic between the actresses portraying them. What made this even more powerful was the fact that the connection did not disappear off-screen. Interviews, promotional appearances, and behind-the-scenes moments reinforced the sense that there was a genuine ease between them. Not forced, not performative, just natural. This is how iconic pairings are born. Not through aggressive marketing but through authenticity. And once that kind of connection enters public consciousness, it does not simply fade away when a project ends. It becomes part of pop culture memory. When the series concluded, many expected the usual pattern. The fandom would celebrate for a while, then slowly move on to the next trending pair. But that never fully happened. Instead, something else took place. Fans continued to rewatch scenes. New viewers discovered the series months later and fell just as deeply. Discussions did not slow down, they evolved. Rather than asking what would happen next in the story, fans began asking what would happen next in real life. Then came the separation. Not a dramatic one. Not an explosive public fallout. There were no messy interviews or public accusations. There was simply distance. Different schedules. Different career paths. Different silences. And in many ways, that quiet separation became the most powerful fuel for ongoing conversation. Faye began to move in a direction that suggested independence and control. Her career choices reflected an actress determined to protect her image, her pace, and her boundaries. She became more selective, more private, and more deliberate. To some fans, this felt like withdrawal. To others, it felt like growth. Either way, it was clear that she was no longer interested in being defined by a single role or pairing, no matter how successful it had been. Yoko's path looked different. Her presence remained more structured, more visible within the system that launched her career. Brand appearances, public events, and carefully curated media moments painted the picture of an actress still navigating contractual obligations and industry expectations. Her image remained bright, controlled, and accessible, even as fans searched for signs of something deeper beneath the surface. These contrasting paths did not signal conflict, but they did explain why a reunion felt complicated. Different priorities, different timing, different levels of freedom. And yet, despite all of this, the question never disappeared. If anything, it became more persistent. Silence has a strange power in fandom culture. When there is no definitive ending, the story remains open. Fans fill the gaps with theories, timelines, and emotional interpretations. Every absence becomes meaningful. Every solo interview is analyzed. Every anniversary post is dissected. In the case of Faye and Yoko, the lack of closure allowed hope to survive. Quietly, stubbornly, and globally. As 2026 arrives, something feels different. Not because of any official announcement, but because time has passed. And in entertainment, time changes everything. Contracts expire. Public pressure softens. Narratives shift. Nostalgia becomes valuable. The intensity that once made collaboration difficult often becomes the very reason a reunion becomes possible later. This is a pattern the industry has seen before. Iconic pairings rarely reunite at their peak. They return after distance, when both individuals have grown beyond the expectations that once confined them. When working together no longer feels like obligation but choice. When the fear of being typecast is replaced by confidence in one's range and identity. Fans understand this instinctively. That is why the conversation around Faye and Yoko in 2026 feels less desperate and more reflective. It is no longer about demanding a sequel or recreating the past. It is about wondering whether two artists, now shaped by separate journeys, might one day choose to meet again creatively. And if that happens, it does not need to look the way fans once imagined. A reunion does not have to mean romance. It does not require repeating blank or attempting to capture the same magic. In fact, trying to recreate the past often weakens what made it special. What fans truly crave is acknowledgement. Recognition of history. A moment that says, yes, that mattered. Sometimes that moment is as simple as a shared interview. A joint appearance at an event. A project that places them side by side without forcing nostalgia. The power lies not in fan service, but in respect, for the story they once told together and for the growth that followed. The reason this topic continues to trend as the new year begins is not because fans are stuck in the past. It is because they recognize unfinished energy. Stories that end too cleanly are easy to forget. Stories that end quietly with space left behind stay alive. Whether they ever work together again remains unknown. And perhaps that uncertainty is part of what keeps their story relevant. In an industry obsessed with constant output, some of the most powerful narratives exist in absence. In what could be rather than what is. As 2026 unfolds, fans will continue to watch. Not obsessively but attentively. Because hope does not always shout. Sometimes it waits. And here on K-Drama Echoes, we understand that some echoes are not meant to fade. They are meant to remind us that certain connections, once formed, never truly disappear. They simply linger, waiting for the right moment to be heard again.